Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpatrubhyascha, Kripasindhu Bhyevacha, Patitanam, Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So, welcome to our continued reading of the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as the Krishna book. We are up to chapter 12, the killing of the Aghasura demon. But first we'll sing a little bit. Krishna, 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 Lakshanam. Krishna, 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 Harinam. Rama Radhava, Rama Radhava, Rama Radhava, Lakshanam. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava. Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chapter 12, the killing of the Aghasura demon. The word Agha in Sanskrit means sinful, impure, evil, and so on. It's interesting that in the Sanskrit dictionary, Agha is identified as Kamsa's general. So anyway, the killing of the Aghasura demon. Once the Lord desired to go early in the morning with all his cowherd boyfriends to the forest, where they were to assemble together and take lunch. As soon as he got up from bed, he blew his buffalo horn bugle and called all his friends together. Keeping their calves before them, they started for the forest in a great procession. In this way, Lord Krishna assembled thousands of his boyfriends. Notice the big numbers here. They were each equipped with a stick, flute, and horn, as well as a lunch bag. And each of them was taking care of thousands of cows. So thousands of boys taking care, each of them, of thousands of calves. Obviously, this is a pastime going on in the spiritual world, and you can see some of it here. Of course, no demons in the spiritual world, but only rumors of demons, Prabhupada says. All the boys appeared very jolly and happy in that excursion. Each and every one of them, including Krishna, was attentive to his personal calves as he herded them in the different places in the forest. By the way, the word vana means uncultivated land, so it doesn't necessarily mean, it's a deep, dark, dense, heavily wooded forest, but some kind of wild acreage. Where was I? The boys were fully decorated with various kinds of golden ornaments, yet out of sporting propensity, they began to pick flowers, leaves, twigs, peacock feathers, and red clay from different places in the forest and further decorate themselves in different ways. While passing through the forest, one boy stole another boy's lunch package and passed it to a third. And when the boy whose lunch package was stolen came to know of it, he tried to take it back. But the boys who had it threw it to another boy. This sportive playing went on amongst the boys as a childhood pastime. This, of course, still goes on to this day. This sportive playing went on amongst the boys as childhood pastimes. When Lord Krishna went ahead to a distant place in order to see some specific scenery, the boys behind him ran to try to catch up and be the first to touch him. So there was a great competition. One would say, "I will go there and touch Krishna." And another would say, "Oh, you can't go. I'll touch Krishna first." Some of them played on their flutes or vibrated bugles made of buffalo horn. Some of them gladly followed the peacocks and imitated the sounds of the cuckoo. While the birds were flying in the sky, the boys ran after the birds' shadows along the ground and tried to follow their exact courses. Some of them went to the monkeys and silently sat down by them, and some of them imitated the dancing of the peacocks. Some of them caught the monkeys by the tail and played with them, and when the monkeys jumped up into a tree, the boys followed. When the monkey showed its face and teeth, a boy imitated and showed his teeth to the monkey. Some of the boys played with frogs on the bank of the Jamuna, and when out of fear the frogs jumped into the water, the boys immediately dove in after them, and when the boys came out of the water and saw their own shadows, they would stand imitating, making caricatures and laughing. They would also go to an empty well and make loud sounds, and when the echo came back, they would call it ill names and laugh. As stated personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita, he is realized proportionally by transcendentalists as Brahman, Paramatman, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You may know this verse, Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattva jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabhyate. Here, in confirmation of the same statement, Lord Krishna, who awards the impersonalist the pleasure of Brahman realization by his bodily effulgence, also gives pleasure to the devotees as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are under the spell of the external energy, Maya, take him only as a beautiful child. Yet he gave full transcendental pleasure to the cowherd boys who played with him. Only after accumulating heaps of pious activities were those boys promoted to personally associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who can estimate the transcendental fortune of the residents of Vrindavan? They were personally seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He whom many yogis cannot find even after undergoing severe austerities, although he is sitting within their hearts. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. One may search for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the pages of the Vedas and Upanishads, but it is difficult to find him there. Vedeshur durlabham, adurlabham atma bhakti. Not found in the Vedas, but easily found, adurlabham, by devotion. However, one who is fortunate enough to associate with a devotee can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. After accumulating pious activities in many, many previous lives, the cowherd boys were seeing Krishna face to face and playing with him as friends. They could not understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they were playing as intimate friends with intense love for him. When Lord Krishna was enjoying his childhood pastimes with his boyfriends, one Aghasura demon became very impatient. He was unable to tolerate seeing Krishna play so happily, and therefore he appeared before the boys intending to kill them all. This Aghasura was so dangerous that even the denizens of heaven were afraid of him. Although the denizens of heaven drank nectar daily to prolong their lives, they were afraid of this Aghasura and were wondering, when will the demon be killed? The denizens used to drink nectar to become immortal, but actually they were not confident of their immortality. On the other hand, the boys who were playing with Krishna had no fear of the demons. They were free of fear. Any material arrangement for protecting oneself from death is always unsure. But if one is in Krishna consciousness, then immortality is confidently assured. The demon Aghasura appeared before Krishna and his friends. Aghasura happened to be the younger brother of Putana and Bakasura. Some family, huh? Aghasura happened to be the younger brother of Putana and Bakasura, and he thought, Krishna has killed my brother and sister. Now I shall kill him along with all his friends and calves. Aghasura was instigated by Kamsa, so he had come with determination. Aghasura thought that when he would offer grains and water in memory of his brother and sister and kill Krishna and all the cowherd boys, then automatically all the inhabitants of Vrindavan would die. Generally, for the householders, the children are the life and breath force. When all the children die, then naturally the parents also die on account of strong affection for them. Aghasura, thus deciding to kill all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. You notice his plan is big. Everyone goes. Aghasura, thus deciding to kill all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, expanded himself by the yogic city called Mohima. The demons are generally expert in achieving almost all kinds of mystic powers. In the yoga system, by the perfection called Mahima Siddhi, one can expand himself as he desires. The demon Aghasura expanded himself up to 8 miles and assumed the shape of a very fat serpent. Having attained this wonderful body, he stretched his mouth open just like a mountain cave, desiring to swallow all the boys at once, including Krishna and Balaram. He sat on the path. The demon, in the shape of a big fat serpent, expanded his lips from land to sky. His lower lip was touching the ground, and his upper lip was touching the clouds. His jaws appeared like a big mountain cave without limitation, and his teeth appeared just like mountain summits. His tongue appeared to be a broad traffic way, and he was breathing just like a hurricane. His eyes were blazing like fire. At first, the boys thought that the demon was a statue, but after examining it, they saw that it was a big serpent lying down on the road and widening his mouth. The boys began to talk among themselves. "Dear friends, this figure appears to be a great animal, and he is sitting in such a posture just to swallow us all. Just see, is it not a big snake that has widened his mouth to eat all of us?" One of them said, "Yes, what you say is true. The animal's upper lip appears to be just like the sunshine, and its lower lip is just like the reflection of red sunshine on the ground. Dear friends, just look to the right and left-hand side of the mouth of the animal. Its mouth appears to be like a big mountain cave, and its height cannot be estimated. The chin is also raised, just like a mountain summit. That long highway appears to be its tongue, and inside the mouth it is as dark as in a mountain cave. The hot wind that is blowing like a hurricane is his breathing, and the fishy bad smell coming out from his mouth is the smell of his intestines." They further consulted among themselves. If we all at one time enter into the mouth of this great serpent, how could it possibly swallow all of us? And even if it were to swallow all of us at once, it could not swallow Krishna. Krishna will immediately kill him as he did Aghasura. Talking in this way, all the boys looked at the beautiful lotus-like face of Krishna, and they began to clap and smile. And so they marched forward and entered the mouth of the gigantic serpent. Meanwhile, Krishna, who is the super soul within everyone's heart, could understand that the big statuesque figure was a demon. The boys did not know this, however, and thus while Krishna was planning how to stop the destruction of his intimate friends, all the boys, along with their calves, entered the mouth of the serpent. But Krishna did not enter. The demon was awaiting Krishna's entrance, and he was thinking, "Everyone is entered except Krishna, who has killed my brother and sister." So waiting for Krishna to enter. Krishna is the assurance of safety to everyone. But when he saw that his friends were already out of his hands and were lying within the belly of a great serpent, he became momentarily aggrieved. He was also struck with wonder at how the external energy works so wonderfully. He then began to consider how he could kill the demon and at the same time save the boys and calves. Although there was no factual concern on Krishna's part, he was thinking like that. Finally, after some deliberation, he also entered the mouth of the demon. So he had to think about it a while, some deliberation. He also entered the mouth of the demon. When Krishna entered, all the demigods who had gathered to see the fun and who were hiding within the clouds expressed their feelings with the words, "Alas, alas." At the same time, all the friends of Aghasura, especially Kamsa, who were accustomed to eating flesh and blood, expressed their jubilation, understanding that Krishna had also entered the mouth of the demon. So somehow, Kamsa, they all know what's going on. They have means of communication among themselves not available to us. While the demon was trying to smash Krishna and his companions, Krishna heard the demigods crying, "Alas, alas," and he immediately began to expand himself within the throat of the demon. Although he had a gigantic body, the demon choked by the expanding of Krishna. So that's he began to expand. And so his body is big, but Krishna's expanding. So Aghasura goes described further. His big eyes, this is as he's beginning to choke, his big eyes moved violently, and he quickly suffocated. His life air could not come out from any source, and ultimately it burst out of a hole in the upper part of his skull. Thus his life air passed off. After the demon was dead, Krishna, with his transcendental glance alone, brought all the boys and calves back to consciousness and came with them out of the mouth of the demon. While Krishna was within the mouth of Aghasura, the demon's spirit soul came out like a dazzling light, illuminating all directions and waited in the sky. As soon as Krishna came out of the mouth of the demon with his calves and friends, that glittering, effulgent light immediately merged into the body of Krishna within the vision of all the demigods. The demigods became overwhelmed with joy and showered flowers on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and thus they worshipped him. The denizens of heaven danced in jubilation, and the denizens of Gandharva Loka offered various kinds of prayers. Drummers beat drums in jubilation. The Brahmanas recited Vedic hymns, and all the devotees of the Lord chanted the words, "Jai, Jai! All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead." When Lord Brahma heard those auspicious vibrations, which sounded throughout the higher planetary system, he immediately came down to see what had happened. He saw that the demon was killed, and he was struck with wonder at the uncommon, glorious pastimes of the personality of Godhead. The gigantic mouth of the demon remained in an open position for many days and gradually dried up. It remained a spot of pleasure pastimes for all the cowherd boys. The killing of Aghasura took place when Krishna and all his boyfriends were under 5 years old. Children under 5 years old are called Komara. From 5 years up to the 10th year, they are called Poganda, and from the 10th year up to the 15th year, they are called Kaishora. After the 15th year, boys are called youths. For 1 year, there was no discussion of the incident of the Aghasura demon in the village of Vraja. But when the boys attained their 6th year, they informed their parents of the incident with great wonder. For Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we'll return to that fact. For Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is far greater than such demigods as Lord Brahma, it is not at all difficult to award one the opportunity of merging with his eternal body. This he awarded to Aghasura. Aghasura was certainly the most sinful living entity, and it is not possible for the sinful to merge into the existence of the absolute truth. But in this particular case, because Krishna entered into Aghasura's body, the demon became fully cleansed of all sinful reactions. Persons constantly thinking of the eternal form of the Lord in the shape of the deity, deity is capitalized here, meaning Archa Vigraha, deity in the temple, in the shape of the deity, or in the shape of a mental form, are awarded the transcendental benedictions of entering into the kingdom of God and associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can just imagine the elevated position of someone like Aghasura, into whose body the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna personally entered. Great sages, meditators, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within their hearts, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temple. In that way, they become liberated from all material contamination, and at the end of the body, enter into the kingdom of God. This perfection is possible simply by keeping the form of the Lord within the mind. But in the case of Aghasura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally entered. Aghasura's position was therefore greater than the ordinary devotees or greatest yogis. Maharaj Parikshit, who was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, who saved the life of Maharaj Parikshit while he was in the womb of his mother, became more and more interested to hear about him, capital H meaning the Lord, and thus he questioned the sage Shukadev Goswami, who was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam before the king. King Parikshit was a bit astonished to understand that the killing of the Aghasura demon was not discussed for 1 year, until after the boys attained the Poganda age. Maharaj Pariksha was very inquisitive to learn about this, for he was sure that such an incident was due to the working of Krishna's different energies. Generally, the Kshatriyas, or the administrative class, are always busy with their political affairs, and they have very little chance to hear about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. But while Parikshit Maharaj was hearing these transcendental pastimes, he considered himself to be very fortunate, because not only was he hearing Krishna's pastimes, but he was doing so from Shukadev Goswami, the greatest authority on Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, being requested by Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami continued to speak about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna in the matter of his form, qualities, fame, and paraphernalia. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 12th chapter of Krishna, the killing of the Aghasura demon. I'll just say a little bit. Because in the Bhagavatam, in this same chapter, 12th chapter of the 10th canto, it describes in a little more detail how Aghasura attained this Sarupya Mukti. The text says, by the way, Prabhupada was still writing purports to the Bhagavatam in this chapter, but I think this is the last one that happened. But anyway, so this is Prabhupada's purport. The verse says in this chapter 12:38, Krishna is the cause of all causes, the causes and effects of the material world, both higher and lower, are all created by the Supreme Lord, the original controller. When Krishna appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, he did so by his causeless mercy. Consequently, for him to exhibit his unlimited opulence was not at all wonderful. Indeed, he showed such great mercy that even Aghasura, the most sinful miscreant, was elevated to being one of his associates and achieving Sarupya Mukti, which is actually impossible for material contaminated persons to attain. So Prabhupada comments on this. The word Maya is also used in connection with love. Out of Maya, love, a father has affection for his child. Therefore, the word, in the Sanskrit, Mayinaha, indicates that Krishna, out of love, appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and assumed the form of a human child, Manujarbha. Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is the creator of cause and effect, and he is the supreme controller. Nothing is impossible for him. Therefore, he enabled even a living being like Aghasura to attain the salvation of Sarupya Mukti. Therefore, that he enabled even a living being like Aghasura to attain the salvation of Sarupya Mukti was not at all wonderful for Krishna. Krishna took pleasure in entering the mouth of Aghasura in a sporting spirit along with his associates. Therefore, when Aghasura, by that sporting association, as maintained in the spiritual world, was purified of all contamination. And so he attained Sarupya Mukti and Vimukti by the grace of Krishna. For Krishna, this was all, this was not at all wonderful. In the next chapter, it says they're telling, it's hinted at already why this year passed, and so it says that although the incident concerning Aghasura had been performed 1 year before, the next chapter is going to describe how Brahma attempted to steal the calves and the cowherd boys. Although this incident concerning Aghasura had been performed 1 year before, when the cowherd boys were in their fifth year, when they were in their 6th year, they said, "It happened today." What happened was this: after killing Aghasura, Krishna, along with his associates, the cowherd boys, went for a picnic within the forest. The calves, being allured by green grasses, gradually went far away, and therefore Krishna's associates became a little agitated and wanted to bring back the calves. Krishna, however, encouraged the boys by saying, "You take your tiffin without being agitated." Tiffin means your lunch. "I shall go find the calves." And thus the Lord departed. Then, just to examine the potency of Krishna, Lord Brahma took away all the calves and cowherd boys and kept them in a secluded place. When Krishna was unable to find the calves and the boys, he could understand that this was a trick performed by Brahma. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, in order to please Lord Brahma, as well as his own associates and their mothers, expanded himself to become the calves and the boys exactly as they were before. In this way, he discovered another pastime. A special feature of this pastime was that the mothers of the cowherd boys thus became more attached to their respective sons, and the cows became more attached to their calves. After nearly a year, Baladeva observed that all the cowherd boys and calves were expansions of Krishna, and thus he asked Krishna what happened. So for them, no time had passed. That's why they didn't talk about it for a year, because for that whole year, they were asleep. Brahma had put them asleep somewhere and then had assumed they're all shapes and forms. So that's that mystery, which we'll hear a little bit more about next time. The stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma. That'll be chapter 13. Stay tuned.
If anybody has any comments or questions or just reflections, anything that struck you or stuck out for you in this story, feel free to type them into the comment section here. And Kendra just has a couple comments. He says, "Some family, huh?" And he says, "Just the sort of family a present-day mass media executive would make the subject of a reality TV show."
Okay. We understand the reference.
And I was just going to read briefly. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami put together this whole compilation, as I mentioned last week, of the inner meanings of the deities, these demons, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And in his compilation, in Bhakti Chaitanya Swami's compilation, he has some of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary, but then also some of his own just kind of summary. So here's his little summary for Aghasura. He says, "Aghasura represents the mentality of cruelty to others. and violence and causing trouble to others out of envy. This attitude is an offense against the chanting of the holy names. It may also manifest in the form of an unwillingness to help other living beings by giving them Krishna consciousness. Then he includes, he says, according to the Garga Samhita, in his previous life, he was Agha, a son of Shakasura. He had a very attractive body of which he was very proud. One time he saw the Muni Ashtavakra, whose body was disfigured, and he
curved in 8 places, yeah, Ashtavakra.
Yeah, and he, whose body is disfigured, and he laughed and said, "Who is this ugly person?" The sage cursed him to become the ugliest snake on earth. Agha then fell at his feet and begged for mercy, so the sage blessed him that he would be delivered by Lord Krishna.
Oh, good. So also, a snake is curved in all different places.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Right. Thank you very much for that.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu says, "Thank you for this wonderful reading, Gurudev. The demons in Krishna Leela serve an important purpose in the drama and often are given different types of liberation. In this light, what do you think is the status of Kali? Should we consider Kali as a Leela player of the same sort?"
You mean Kali Devi? That's beyond the scope of my knowledge. We'll see what happens. This is a very special Kali Yuga, so you can pray for her.
Madhavendra Puri Prabhu says, how literal do we take the yojana in these pastimes? Is the word sometimes used simply like the word huge or other exaggerations?
Prabhupada gave a figure for a yojana. What was it, about 8 miles or something like that? But I don't know what it was at that time of how it was done. You know, used to be that a yard was the length from the king's nose to the thumb when he held it out, and so it varied from time to time before things were standardized. So that's why it's hard really to understand all the measurements. Somebody's probably written a doctoral dissertation on measurements at ancient Sanskrit times, and so we could find out.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, he clarifies, he didn't mean the Kali, goddess Kali, he meant Kali Yuga Kali.
And what, so when Kali Yuga...
So the demons in Krishna Leela serve an important purpose in the drama and often are given different types of liberation. In this light, what do you think the status of Kali,
the personality, yeah.
Should we consider Kali as a Leela player of the same sort?
No, I don't know.
Akanta Bhakti says, thank you, Gurudev, with a smiley face emoticon. Akendra Prabhu offers, he says, Aghasura was killed on Lord Balaram's birthday, according to the Sarata Darshini. And Charuchandra Prabhu says, yes, that's why Balaram wasn't there. Mother Rohini would keep him at home on his birthday.
That's right.
Kaliya pastime too. Yeah, I remember that. And David Darana says, thank you, Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu. I offer my obeisances to you. And those are the comments that have come in. Since we have a moment, I also just want to clarify a little bit this idea that Krishna entered Aghasura's body, and that's why Aghasura became fully cleansed. So is it clear to think that there's different gradations of Krishna in the sense of, we also know that Krishna is in our hearts as super soul, so he is within our bodies. So
yeah, well, that's a super soul feature, though, you know.
That's what I'm saying. The gradations of, Krishna himself walks inside.
I mean, for a yogi, a Vishnu form of the Lord will appear if they see the super soul, but for a devotee, it will be Krishna. It'll be different.
Right. And that's why Prabhupada writes, great sages, meditators, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within their hearts, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temples, and that way they become liberated from all material contamination. At the end of their body, enter the kingdom of God.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it interesting that, you know, Krishna entered his body, and therefore that's why he became
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
purified. But we also have Krishna in our hearts, thankfully.
Well, what he entered to is 1/10,000th the tip of a hair and so.
Does that matter? I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, I think it would be a pretty potent tip of a hair.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, I was just thinking about that. And Madhavendra Prabhu says, what lessons can we extract from the lifestyle of Krishna? Is it speculative to bring certain aspects into the modern age? For example, force grazing is quite an environmentally friendly model in light of modern predictions on cattle and greenhouse effects.
Yeah. I think that we are clearly, to me, it seems very, very obvious that something most devotees, I think, have an intuition or knowledge of. Most people don't know we're going to have to deindustrialize, either voluntarily or by force, and return, at least in some way, to what Prabhupada called plain living and high thinking, with energy production and food production as local as possible, and working in harmony with the earth and the living beings. Also, Prabhupada said that the word praja means all the citizens. He translated as citizens, and that means all the living beings in the kingdom are to be considered subjects and protected by the king. And so that means animals, plants, they all have some kind of civil rights, and we have to come to that position and then learn how to live properly in a way that would be immensely sustainable. And so this myth of progress by human industrialization is just that. It's a myth, and it's going to have to be abolished. Got to be.
Certainly is being amplified right now, both of those topics of
Yes,
civil rights and environment.
You notice that, yeah. Yeah, we're way ahead of everybody else in seeing that all living beings have civil rights. They haven't come to that realization yet, and therefore need to be protected by the government. When he says the king, we should just say the government. And yeah.
I'll have to come over here so people can hear you. One moment.
I remember when Yudi was in law school, one internship, they were getting a forest, I think around Pittsburgh somewhere, to have some civil rights. I think they won.
Yeah.
He was doing an internship with some organization.
Yeah, I remember that when he was in law school.
Yeah, when he was in law school, and summer internship. And I think they were successful. That forest has certain rights. They were trying to keep roads from just plowing through or something.
Anything else?
Those are all the questions and comments so far, unless we have anybody last moments. David Dharana says, "This is so wonderful, Ki Jai," with 3 exclamation points. We're happy you're on, that you're tuned in. Hopefully.
Okay. So next week we'll do chapter 14,
13.
Excuse me, yeah. That's right. I already had 13 up, and I just wish. What's the title of 13?
The boys being taken by Burma, right?
Yeah, the stealing.
The stealing of the boys and calves by Burma.
Yeah, that's the title. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Until then.
By the way, that chapter begins with Sukadeva Goswami being questioned by Maharaj Parikshit and said, "My dear king, you are making the subject matter of transcendental pastimes of Krishna fresher by your inquisitiveness." So I also appreciate everyone's inquisitiveness. Thank you all very much. Until next week, thank you.
Also, I just want to, before we sign off, I'll be sending out an announcement, but this Saturday there'll be another special little class around 9:30 in the morning. Ravindra Svarupa is offering initiation to a disciple in Germany, and it will be broadcasted online. I mean, his class and everything will be online on a Zoom call. So I will send out that information by email and also put it on Facebook for everybody to join in if you would like to.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Krishna book ki jai.